Hi everyone, welcome to the MrpTech Podcast. This is episode 173. My name is Matt, I am your host, and this week's episode is all about the rumored iPad Pro 12.9 inch for 2020. Before I get into that though, I want to give you an update about the show. You may have noticed that there was not an episode last week. Last week I was feeling under the weather for a few days, and I had a big music festival that we were hosting at our school. So there was a lot of things happening. We had the festival, it went off great. Caught the bug shortly thereafter. Was not feeling well for a few days, and actually took a few days off from work. Recouped a little bit, then hit the ground running, so to speak, over vacation. One of the things that I've been working on recently was basically updating the audio and video archive of the music organization that I founded a long time ago, back in 2004, and we've got many different concerts that we performed in. One of the things that I always have done is sort of kept either a video or audio recording of most performances, and what I did is I had them all stored on a hard drive somewhere on YouTube, and so it sort of became a project in sort of organizing a little bit. But then I realized that I was missing the very first recordings that I had from this group way back in August of 2004 and 2005, and at one point I had the high 8 tapes of these performances and converted them to digital, but I lost the files and I couldn't find them anywhere. So it took me a while. I had to track down these tapes that are 15, 16 years old at this point. And luckily we were able to find them in a few days. And then it was a matter of trying to convert a high 8 tape to digital. And luckily, I knew somebody who had a USB video converter for like the RCA cables, the red, white, and yellow composite cables, and we were able to get the video from the actual camcorder, which still works, believe it or not, 20 some odd years. Actually, this is probably going on a 30-year-old video camera at this point, which is pretty impressive that all these mechanical moving parts still work after that long. In fact, I had a video camera that had a built-in hard drive that I purchased in 2008 that really only lasted me about 5 years, and here there's this high 8 tape video camera from the mid 90s is actually still working. So we once and for all were able to convert these files to digital. We've uploaded them to YouTube, and we also have the copies backed up in a few different spots now, so we won't have the problem of losing these together again. But there is, if you're interested and you have an old video camera or old VHS tapes that you want converted to digital format, you can get on Amazon. There is if they're high 8 tape converters, you can get one. It's a little box, probably 4 or 5 inches, rectangular shape. I believe it's on sale for $139 right now. That will convert these old tapes to digital, and it's got some pretty good reviews on Amazon from what I've seen. There are cheaper versions that are a few years old now that don't have great reviews. This one seemed to have pretty good reviews. That was going to be my last resort. Turns out I didn't need that at this case, but if anybody's interested and needs that link, I can provide that for you. Just send me an email, mrptechreviews@gmail.com. One of the things that I have been promising myself that I was going to do was update the mrptechreviews.com website, and I will be getting to that over the next couple of days. I really would like to give it a good little upgrade, and one of the things that I want to do is start posting the shows on the main page. You can see the more recent episodes. I believe it's like the last 20 episodes or something like that. If you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see the recent podcast episodes, and you can link directly to those. So if you're ever looking for the back catalog, so to speak, The website usually has about 20 of them just because that's the way FeedBurner works. And if you're looking for anything way back, go to YouTube because all the podcast episodes are on YouTube as well. Some of the older episodes hold up pretty well, and some of them are sort of time frame specific. So it's always worth going back and taking a look through some of those older episodes. If you would like to, before we get started with the show, I would like to invite everybody to Discord and join our chat room. We've got some fun people in our Discord room, and what I'd like to do maybe later on this week is get an episode of the show out where we ask everybody on Discord to hop on a microphone and sort of have an informal discussion about anything that they want to talk about, and I think it'd be a whole lot of fun to do. So maybe later on this week, as time permits for everyone, and try to find a time where it's best for everybody. I know we have some listeners in faraway places, let's say, and so trying to get a good time for everybody is always tough. But maybe we could do a U.S. centric one at one point, and then a Europe centric episode or something like that to give an open invite for all those listeners over in Europe. Okay, so starting today's episode, I had mentioned today's episode is going to be about the news is sort of swirling around that the next iPad Pro line is coming out very soon, and they usually do a refresh in March. So the rumors are starting to spread about these new devices. And the reason it's important to me is because this is sort of been my master plan for the last year or so. If you have been listening to this show, I've been talking a lot about iPads and what we're using them for. I've been doing a lot of grant writing. And the reason why we're using Apple iPad Pros, the 12.9-inch version, is because we're using them as PDF readers for music. And my professional group is looking for PDF music readers, and I've done the research. Everybody around the world who's a professional musician uses iPad Pros for the most part, 99% of the time. And the large screen is great for just about every type of thing that we need. Unfortunately, that comes with quite the price tag with a 20-member ensemble. So what I have been doing, thanks to my sister-in-law who works for a grant writing foundation, she gave me the avenues that I needed, and I've had this in my mind since about 2012, but because our business is a for-profit business, I was never eligible to apply for grants. Well, one of the things that you can do when you're for-profit, if you need a grant, is you can get what's called a nonprofit fiscal sponsor. So you can align with a nonprofit organization, and they will act as your fiscal sponsor. And so sort of the middle person between the foundation giving grants and your business. So highly recommend doing that if you are a business looking for funding. There are ways to do this where you don't have to be a nonprofit organization. Most grants are given to nonprofit organizations, but when they are your fiscal sponsor, you are allowed to get the funding if it fits the criteria for whatever grant you are applying for. So what we are doing is finding local arts grants. We're finding grants in our area that are for the environmental friendly purposes, because what we're trying to do is save on paper, we're trying to save on ink, we're trying to make things more reusable, and we're really pushing this hard to make this happen. And so last November we were able to purchase 6 iPad Pro 12.9-inch. At this point it was the 2018 model. Now I know specifically that every so often these iPads will be up. And ultimately, for this group, we're going to need about 25 of them. So that's a big thing that I would never ever in 1,000 years be able to afford without grants. And so the plan was, it's a 20-member ensemble, and I wanted to have about 5 extra for room to grow for emergencies. If somebody wasn't able to make it, I need to bring in a substitute player. We'd have extras to use. And we also have a separate group that's a smaller group that plays off to the side as well. So what we're doing is filling in every part possible with these iPads. And one of the ideas I had, I'm going to get the older version, the 2018 version, and hopefully by the time the rest of my funding comes through, which is going to be in April or late April, early May, what the plan would be is the newer iPad Pro would be out, and this would last us longer into the future. And we have plans for in the far future, we have a replacement plan in the works. So we have a model that's working quite well. So I had planned on these older iPads from 2018 to be used for something specific, and then the new Orchestra would be have the rest of them if we're granted funding. We're looking at the two newer models, and there's an 11-inch, there's a 12.9-inch. We pretty much decided that the 12.9 inch is the perfect way to go, basically. So the rumors are starting to come out that the new 12.9 inch is going to be sort of a incremental upgrade from the 2018 iPad. And one of the things that's really great about it is the edge-to-edge displays, getting rid of the home button, very slim bezels. We're really not all that concerned with cameras, but it is nice to have the really great cameras in case we need them for some reason, like recording. Might be something worthwhile when you have a 4K camera right there built in. So certainly something that's possible. We don't really have a need for Apple Pencil. In my opinion, the Apple Pencil is outrageously overpriced. Last I checked, it was around $119 or $129, and we don't have a need for the smart keyboards. But basically what we do is we buy an OtterBox case, the Defender, really rugged case, because these are getting moved around all the time, and we just don't want the screens to be broken. So basically the rumor is that edge-to-edge displays, Face ID, USB-C is all coming standard in the previous models. They're starting to come, and we expect that to be continued in the 2020 version. And so we're expecting a bump in the display. 2732 by 2048 is what is expected. The new A12X processor, very thin, redesigned body. Up to 1 terabyte of storage. Anybody who would need a terabyte of storage on an iPad, I have no idea what you would do with that. But for us, even 64 gigabytes would be just fine for what our purposes. The files that we're using, very small files, just using it as a PDF reader, basically. So once again, available in silver or space gray. I tend to like the space gray look more than the silver. I've always seemed to have gotten space gray with any iOS device in recent years. Okay, so as it looks right now, the new iPad Pros are expected to be released at the end of March. However, Apple seems to be feeling the pain that a lot of businesses are feeling right now who have manufacturing in China. There is obviously many people are aware of the sort of quarantine set up in China right now due to the virus outbreak, and a lot of businesses are trying to protect their factory workers and shipping and etc. Coming out of China is pretty much shut down at this point. And so that may get some type of, you may see that pushed back a little bit from the original plans. But what we're hoping for is that this, obviously the most important thing is that the situation over there improves hopefully sooner rather than later, not just from a shipping standpoint or manufacturing standpoint, but obviously we're all thinking about the people over there in the situation. We're hoping that things clear up sooner rather than later. So getting back to the iPads now, again, we're not expecting a huge change from the 2018 to the 2020 models, but the biggest change would not only be the display, but the cameras. They're expected to upgrade the rear cameras to that, the triple rear cameras that have arrived on the iPhone Pro models. And again, I'm not really all that concerned about cameras. I take pictures. I'm not a photographer. I'm not all that super interested in photography, but having these multiple lenses for certain things, improving the low light images in night mode, that type of thing, would be kind of beneficial just for sort of like for my purpose, if a band member wants to take photos during live performances, they can do that. And all these archival, type things for my group, which now has some history to it, which is pretty awesome. We've been around since 2005. We're looking towards the future. We're also looking towards the past too. We've picked up an entire library of music from the 60s and 70s from a local group that was around back then. So we're sort of encompassing a wide genre of a wide span of many years here locally. And so I've always thought that, doing as much archiving as possible would be beneficial years down the road when people are looking back at some pretty neat memories. At this point in time, I think I misspoke earlier. I think I said A12X. It's looking like it may be the A13X or even A14X processor at this point. I really am not all that familiar with the processors inside iPad at this point in time. I have to say that using the iPad Pro 2018 has sort of changed my perspective on iPads a little bit. I in the past have had a 9.7 inch iPad, which I use occasionally for very specific tasks, and using it in the professional music world, iPad has really opened up lots of different possibilities. So we're looking at a 64 gigabyte, 256 gigabyte, 512, and 1 terabyte. We're looking at improved batteries as well. So we're basically around the 10-hour mark for batteries. It's not surprising if the 64 gigabyte model is replaced with 128 gigabytes, but we're not sure if that's going to happen at this point or not. Honestly, my only concern here is will Apple keep the same pricing on iPads? So whatever their base iPad model is, that's pretty much what we're going to have to be able to afford. So I'm really hoping there's not a huge price increase on these devices. Otherwise, things are up in the air again for what we need it for. And iPad OS has seen lots of great improvements over the last year or so, and really makes it much more functional, much more user friendly. With the addition of using something like a Bluetooth mouse, file system now you have access to, even though it's very limited. But they seem to be moving in the right direction as far as making iPads more like a traditional laptop or desktop computer. Still, I find myself for most of my work using a laptop. It's just my preferred method of getting work done. I don't see that changing, but who knows? The deal here is that basically these are all just rumors at this point, and obviously Apple is usually very tight-lipped about these releases. But being that it's been so long since a launch of the latest device, it's over 2 years now, I would expect fairly soon that a refresh would be happening. Samsung's competition is the Galaxy Tab S6, which just launched in 2019. So we're expecting Apple to sort of try to top that. I see rumors talking about a 5G iPad. I don't see that happening. I don't think they're there yet, but you never know at this point. Now, speaking on iPads, for my use, the screen size is the biggest thing here. For what we need, we don't need a lot of processing power. I wish that they would have a larger screen iPad, 12.9 inch, that was not a Pro line, that did not have the fastest processor, that was less expensive, because all we need is the screen real estate. We don't need all that processing power. And maybe a few years down the road, this 2018 model will get revamped and to an iPad 12.9 inch that's not a Pro model. That has happened in the past with the smaller screens. So who knows? Maybe down the road there'll be a cheaper version with the bigger screen. I would be all for that, and that actually would, fit my business model more than say the Pro line, because we don't really need the Pro line with all the bells and whistles. I don't need the camera lenses. I don't need the super fast processors or anything like that. So I'm hoping down the road that there'll be a cheaper version of the iPad, and that's sort of my prediction that it will happen eventually. I put the iPad Pro 11 and 12.9 inch side by side together, and I almost went with the cheaper iPad Pro 11. There is a big difference in the two, and seeing them in person in my local Best Buy really, when you're looking for screen real estate, there really isn't anything much better than the 12.9 inch one. Okay, so my thought on this is I would hope to see this out by March. They usually hold an Apple event in March, and I'm guessing that it'll be several weeks before the iPads are available. And that actually works pretty well with my time frame. So fingers crossed that these new iPads will be available in April. We'll get our grant funding, and then we'll be able to purchase some. And I'll review them on the show once I get them, in just hopefully a month to 2 months' time. So iPads are something that I've used for my businesses because the professional music world calls for compatibility with Macs, compatibility, iPads, you need to be able to connect to sound systems. And I've said this many times on the show, when it comes to a production environment, a live music production environment, I need to show up, I need to set up, and I just need things to work without issue. I don't want to troubleshoot. I don't want to worry about things. I don't have time to find a workaround for some other type of setup that we have. Just need it to work so that the performance comes out and shows the high quality group that we are. So this is why we use Mac in my business. We do use Linux for live streaming. We have a live stream setup that we use. I have a System 76 laptop. It does a great job with OBS, and I'm going to continue using that as long as it works. So I do try to incorporate as much open source as I can for whatever will work. And there comes times where I have to use other products. And this is just a case where everybody else in the group is using iOS. They're familiar with iOS. And it just works the best in this use case scenario. We do have some members in our group that are fans of Android. I try to let them use devices that they want to use, but in the case of doing all the research, if you look at Harry Connick Jr.'s band, Harry Connick Jr.'s band is all playing on digital at this point. He travels all around the country. There's another professional player in the Atlanta area. His name is Joe Granson. He has got his own band that is using digital music readers. Professional musicians all over the world are going this way. So this is sort of me looking towards the future with my group. And I'm really excited about these new iPads as long as the price is right. I'm on a very tight budget with the grant funding, and I hope that everything will work out. My fingers are crossed. So if you're an iPad user, if you have one of the Pro line models, I'd love to hear what you have and what you use it for, what your thoughts are on it, your favorite apps, anything like that. You can contact me anytime, mrptechreviews@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from some of my listeners, and you can always say hello in Discord in between shows. So, hey, listen, there has been a couple of weeks where I missed a show. Obviously, this show is something that I really enjoy to do. I don't make much money at all with this, probably zero most of the time. And I have made money in the past from this show. A very generous, person would come along once in a while and give a small donation. But if you'd like to donate to the show, I have a donate button on the website, mrptechreviews.com. I do have a Patreon page, patreon.com/mrptech. I'm not very good at updating it. And if I had a few patrons, maybe I would update it a little bit more. But the idea here is not that I'm reaching out and asking for money, but you're also always welcome to support the show if you feel necessary. If you like the show, consider supporting it. And the real point of this is I've missed a few weeks here and there. Last week I was not feeling well. Going through a bunch of things in life. I'm super busy. I have a lot of things that are on my plate. These grants have taken up a lot of time, as well as some major life changes since about October. So there's a lot of things that are sort of up in the air, and I'm trying my best to put out a show every week. But there's some weeks that I'm just not going to be able to get to it right now. In the future, hopefully that will all balance itself out, and I will be back to recording once a week, because I really do enjoy doing it. And if you have a topic that you would like me to cover or research, I'd be happy to do that. Just let me know what you want to hear, and I'll tailor the show towards your needs. That's going to do it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. We will see you next time.